But by all means, when we're not singing, this is very much a conversation-based learning. So please unmute when we aren't singing, and I hope that you will be singing at home. I thank you for my life, body and soul. Help me realize I am beautiful and whole. I'm perfect the way I am, and a little broken too. I will live each day as this gift I give to you. Now is an easy part for you to do. Whoa. 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 Baruch atah Adonai Rofei Chol Basar. Rofei Chol Basar Umafli La'asot. Baruch atah Adonai. Baruch atah Adonai Rofei Chol Basar Umafli La'asot. Rofei Chol Basar Umafli La'asot. Whoa. 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 I love this English. We're going to go through this one more time. I thank you for my life, body and soul. Help me realize I am beautiful and whole. Help me realize I am beautiful and whole. This next line, I'm perfect the way I am and a little broken too. I'm perfect the way I am and a little broken too. I'm gonna live each day. I will live each day as a gift I give to you. Whoa. 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 Isn't it nice to acknowledge our bodies before we do some learning with them, to remind ourselves how lucky we are with these bodies and our minds, these lives. Sweet as honey, sweet as honey, sweet as honey on our tongue. That's right. Torah is going to be the thing that is sweet on our tongue. Sweet as honey, sweet as honey, sweet as honey on our tongue. Baruch atah Adonai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah, la'asok b'divrei Torah. Sweet as honey, sweet as honey, sweet as honey on our tongue. Sweet as honey, sweet as honey, sweet as honey on our tongue.
Cantor,
Sharon.
that the first prayer, the English words, immediately reminded me or made me think that that would be a wonderful thing to introduce to teenagers.
Yeah. So I learned that piece at 6 Points Creative Arts Camp in Pennsylvania. Was the first time I was introduced to that. And they start each day. So it is the prayer for, it's one of the morning blessings, and they start each day with that. And I was so moved by the sentiment because isn't it so true that truly, you know, we are perfect the way we are. And we're perfect in our brokenness.
Yes.
And that actually it's those cracks that make us both human and beautiful.
When Cantor Duret's Peled was here, we used to sing that on Rosh Hashanah before Torah readings too.
Say more. Tell me more about that.
That's where I learned the song, was from her. And I can remember actually sitting outside and singing it also. I guess it was during the whole High Holy Day period.
Oh, wow.
Where we sang that.
Wow.
But that's really the last time I remember singing it a lot.
Very cool. I love the sentiment, and I appreciate, it is a great sentiment for teens and for all of us. Hello, Adlers. Welcome. We are happy to have you. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. And like I said, please unmute yourselves. We have come to the discussion portion of our time together. So this is Rosh Chodesh Sivan. We are now prepared. We have blessed our study. We have blessed our bodies. So now we turn to Rosh Chodesh. So we're looking here at the Sinai Desert, perhaps Mount Sinai, somewhere in those rolling hills. But our women of this month are the women of Shavuot, the woman of the book of Ruth. And we're going to come to later on why these two women are associated with Shavuot. Each of our festivals have a Megillah that's associated with them. And for this one, we get the book of Ruth. So we're going to unpack this story a little bit. We're going to focus in on the first chapter, on the beginning of the story, looking at, first of all, who our players are, who are our stories. So in front of us, we have the family tree. Like most stories, it starts off by naming who are in our story. So we start off with the marriage of Naomi and Elimelech. They are happily married. They have two sons, and we've got a true literary feature here because they've named their sons Machlon and Chilion, which means sickness and destruction. So I don't know if you were considering those names for your children, but they may not be. It is foreshadowing of what their future is going to be. So the four of them set out. There is a famine in the land of Israel. They set out and they end up in the land of Moab. And, you know, as would happen as we move into diaspora, when we bring our children with us, they fall in love with local girls. So Machlon marries Ruth and Chilion marries Orpah, both Moabite women. And that is our family tree. So what's the next piece? What happens next? As we learn, as we kind of get the idea from their names, we get the death of first Elimelech, first the husband, and then the death of Machlon and the death of Chilion. So all we are left with in this family tree is Naomi, Ruth, and Orpah. So think back to our women last month. You know, what's going on in the minds of these women? They're obviously devastated at the loss of their partners. But what are the bigger issues that arise from this?
They come from two different countries.
Okay. So we're in two different countries. What else?
It's just women that are alive?
It's just women that are alive. So how is that problematic?
They don't have a man to support them, and in those days, the men did everything, made decisions on everything.
Right.
I think they probably didn't have any rights to make any big decisions either.
So thinking back, even though the daughters of Zelophehad, the ruling changed and they were able to have their stake in the land of Israel, that's a very specific it's interesting. It doesn't come into play here in this story, because you might say, well, if the wife is all that's left and the daughters-in-law are all that are left, then, based off of that ruling from the daughters of Zelophehad, then, it'll be okay because they're still going to get the land. And, towards the end of the story, it kind of works that way, but they have to remarry. But we'll talk about that later. So, there's a lot of challenges that face these women. What other emotions are probably going on?
They have just all lost their husbands. So, of course, they're grieving.
Okay, grief is a really big part of this, and responses to grief. Yes. So we've got the fear of, I'm a woman in a man's world. We've got extreme grief, not only their husbands, but their father-in-laws, their brother-in-law. This is just grief beyond what anyone should have to go through. So if I could ask for a volunteer to place us in the story and read this paragraph.
I'll do it.
Thank you, Sharon.
Okay. The book of Ruth. She started out with her daughters-in-law to return from the country of Moab. They left the place where they had been living, and they set out on the road back to the land of Judah. But Naomi said to her two daughters-in-law, "Turn back, each of you, to your mother's house. May the Eternal deal kindly with you, as you have dealt with the dead and with me. May the Eternal grant that each of you find security in the house of a husband." And she kissed them farewell. They broke into weeping.
So a few interesting pieces of this. First of all, don't go back to your father's house, go back to your mother's house. And as you said, devastation. They're mourning and they break into weeping. There's such emotion that is conveyed here. And emotion's a harder thing to get in Torah. This potentially, because we're talking about women, I think there is a little bit more of a lean to talk about emotion. So I want to actually look at, Sharon, you really brought out this daughters-in-law in the way that you read. And that's actually one of the things I'd like to ask about is, what is the in-law relationship like? And by all means, speak from experience. What is the in-law relationship between mothers and daughters-in-law?
Well, I think, and I have my daughter-in-law's mother right with me, but I think you always have to keep in mind, and I think Ruth did a good job by telling her to go back to her mother, that as much as you want to be mother-like to a daughter-in-law or to a son-in-law, if you want to bring it to
Sure.
either side, you still do have to remember that you can never take the place of the daughter-in-law or son-in-law's mom.
Colleen, I'm curious, or sorry, who started to talk? Yeah, go ahead, Denise.
I looked at it as, if you stay here with me, you won't be able to move on in your life. But if you go back to your mother, you may be able to start life over again. And because she said, may you find security in the house of a husband. So it looks like she loved them enough to give them permission to be happy and to start over again.
So Denise, then will you read the next piece of text?
"No, we will return with you to your people." But Naomi replied, "Turn back, my daughters. Why should you go with me? Have I any more sons in my body who might be husbands for you? Turn back, my daughters, for I am too old to be married. even if I thought there was hope for me. Even if I were married tonight and I also bore sons, should you wait for them to grow up? Oh no, my daughters, my lot is far more bitter than yours, for the hand of the Eternal has struck out against me. They broke into weeping again, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law farewell.
So Denise, you worded it clearly. You've read the book of Ruth before, and you were planning on this being the next piece of text we were going to look at.
Actually, no, but thank you for giving me that credit.
Well, or maybe it's just it's it's a maternal response, or maybe it's the mother and your understanding of what it is to be a mother-in-law. You know, it ties into what Sharon said, that ultimately, like, you are not mine. You are part of my family, but ultimately your mother is your mother. Go back to her. And so how would you describe Naomi? What kind of woman is she based on this? What does she care about? What's important to her?
That the girls are happy.
Mm.
She reminds me very, very much of my mother-in-law. I can put myself in this whole situation because when Lou died, my mother-in-law wanted nothing more than for me to be happy, and really encouraged me to find a husband, or to find, what was going to make me happy. And she lost both her sons, my mother-in-law, and that only strengthened her relationship with me. But there was always that little thing that she was not really my mother, as close as we were. I identify with this so very much. And what, at her death, that was as difficult for me as my own mother's death.
Oh, wow. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. What do we think about Orpah here?
Maybe she wasn't as close to her mother-in-law as Ruth was to the mother-in-law.
Mm-hmm. Or she took her words to heart. I think that, Denise, your words are so beautiful, but like, your mother-in-law loved you enough to say, please be happy. And for Naomi, I think she's saying something similar, and Orpah's hearing her and ultimately honoring Naomi by doing what she's asking for. And Helene has kind of foreshadowed what's coming. Ruth is going to make a different decision. Do we view Orpah differently? Well, we'll hold on to that question for well, we're going there. I'll ask this question after we read the next slide. Oh no, we won't. So what happens next is essentially, well, we're going to go into it with more depth, but this brought up an interesting question. Ruth is going to say, I'm going with you, Mama. Like, we're in this together, and there's much more beautiful language that I'm going to sing to you in a moment. But who's the better daughter-in-law?
There is no better daughter-in-law.
Say more, Sharon.
You can say that Orpah respected her mother-in-law's wishes, which makes her a wonderful daughter-in-law. And of course, we know that Ruth's going to go with her mother-in-law and be part of her life, which is also another choice, but I don't think one is better than the other.
And how often in life do we take different roads, and one is neither better nor worse than the other? They're just different roads. They're just different choices. And I feel like we spoke about that. I think this is going to come up a lot in the next year because it's something very real in our lives. How often do we look at the world and say, well, that person's making a very different choice than me, and it's wrong? And here's an example of two women who make entirely different choices, and we can see both of them as good choices. And it's an interesting way to see the women in our story, and potentially a way to see the people in our lives. So Orpah is motivated so beautifully by the words of Naomi, and Ruth is motivated in a different way by her words. And ultimately, Ruth is going to make some interesting choices. So my question for you is, what motivates you to be Jewish? Ultimately, Ruth is going to join the people of her mother-in-law. And I'm curious, what motivates you to be Jewish?
Connection.
Mm-hmm.
I think down here you have to have a big community because we are so spread out that we tend to look for friends or people we socialize with through the congregation and the people we've met through temple.
Mm-hmm.
Values.
To me, I've always felt very strongly about making sure that the Jewish people will always be here. When I was younger, as soon as I learned about the Holocaust, I just knew in my heart that all of us, we have like a calling to not only for us to respect Judaism and keep it going, but also through our children and grandchildren, so that we know it continues on even after we're gone.
So I think you said that beautifully. I wrote that as Lador Vador, from generation to generation. And also I heard something about a collective responsibility in there.
Yes.
Wow.
It's quite a list. Any others? Gloria, would you like to add one? Unmute yourself.
Okay, now I think it's the friendships that we build within the temple that, we all share pretty much the same values, and we want the same things for our children. That we share that so much. We've gone through so much with our friends over the years, and that's what connects us.
So I want you to keep this list in mind, and we're going to find out what motivates Ruth. So if you were asked, when we're talking about what motivates you, the following questions, I want you to consider what your answers would be. So as I have at the top there, the next piece of our conversation is a combination of the book of Ruth, and it's the book of Ruth as understood through the rabbis. So in the Talmud, in Tractate Yevamot, they are going to try and suss out a little bit more about what it is that Ruth truly finds motivating about joining the Jewish people. So I'm simply going to ask these 4 questions, and then we're going to move into the beautiful words. They're probably the most iconic words from the book of Ruth. And with these questions in mind, you're going to reflect. So, do you accept the 613 commandments? Will you commit to the worship of one God and forsake idolatry? Do you accept the punishments delivered for disobeying the mitzvot? Will you accept the communal expectations for burial? It's an interesting list. We're going to come back to those questions. So now we turn to these beautiful, iconic words from Megillat Ruth. And this setting was done by Cantor Charles Osborne. And interestingly, he actually wrote this piece for his own installation at Temple Sinai many years ago. And we'll talk about why it's funny after the fact. But these words I share with you. But Ruth said, entreat me not to leave you, or to return from following after you. For wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. Adonai, do thus to me, and more as well, if anything but death parts me from you. But Ruth said, entreat me not to leave you, or to return from following after you. Vatomer Ruth al tifkei vi, לעזבך לשוב מאחרייך, כי אל אשר תלכי אלך, ובאשר תליני אלין. עמך עמי ואלוהיך אלוהי, באשר תמותי אמות, ושם אקבר. כה יעשה אדוני לי, וכה יוסיף, כי המוות יריד ביני ובינך. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. What do you think of these words?
They're beautiful.
What comes to mind when you hear them?
She's making her commitment to Judaism,
Mm-hmm.
and has become part of those people. She has that connection. They are her community. Everything that we said, you know, what makes us feel Jewish, it looks like that's exactly what Ruth is saying here.
Mhm.
Well, and that was actually going to be my next question. There's a beautiful correlation between them. And this notion of becoming Jewish. So the rabbis look at Ruth's response here, these words, as her conversion. And Naomi as her Beit Din, almost as the witness to that commitment to faith, to a new faith. So what the rabbis do is kind of fun and clever. So, do you accept the 600? They create questions that were asked before she answers. Do you accept the 613 commandments? So here's our 4 questions, and let's see how it responds. So I'll do it as a dialogue. Do you accept the 613 commandments? Your people are my people. Will you commit to one God and forsake idolatry? Your God is my God. Do you accept the punishments delivered for disobeying the mitzvot? Where you die, I shall die. Will you accept the communal expectations for burial? And there will I be buried. So the rabbis try and see it a little bit differently than I think some of the motivations that you spoke about. But there's something really, I love this dialogue that they create here. So assuming this is a formula for conversion, I want to look at one piece in particular, and I think it might relate to the list that you created. Do you find anything odd about the order in which Ruth makes her declaration?
Accepted the people before she accepted the God.
Accept the people before God. What does that say? What does that say about her? What does that say about us?
The Jewish people were her community.
That before the faith and the relationship with God, that the community, and go back to the list that you so beautifully put together. And it's really in line with that. Right? When you look at this list is the person to person. And I think that that's such a human way to be Jewish, that we begin with those that surround us, those that we see, those that we interact with, those that bring us chicken soup when we're sick. We turn to prayer, but we first need the chicken soup, right? There's something different about the relief that we get from the chicken soup than from prayer. And they both have their role, right? Remember, 2 paths, 2 ways of going about something equally important, equally meaningful.
One is tangible though, and the other is not. And, there's a really big difference there. I think. And you probably need that physical connection, if you will, before you can go beyond to the abstract, to the belief, to the spiritual part of it.
The human connection before the spiritual connection. Oh, I have chills. Like, I love that notion. So now we come to the book of Ruth and Shavuot. So Shavuot, what's Shavuot the holiday for, other than cheesecake?
Blintzes.
Blintzes and cheesecake. Other than blintzes and cheesecake, Shavuot is where we receive the commandments, again, where we accept the yoke of Torah. That doesn't mean we crack an egg, but that we celebrate the gift of Torah, and everything. And really, it's a celebration of learning. And when we take the book of Ruth and we pair it with Shavuot, has anyone known anyone who's gone through a conversion process like Ruth did, or maybe you did? Yeah, go ahead, Denise.
Well, me, not the same as Ruth per se, but well, what do you want to know about it?
What I want to know is, was it your people will be my people, your God my God, or was it like, what was the order for you? What brought you into
Oh, that's interesting. I think that I wanted to be part of the people. I think I felt part of the people and I wanted to make it official, if you will. I wanted my children to be part of the same people. And for me, there was always only one God, and it was still the same God. I was still always doing unto others. I was, my values were probably pretty much the same. So it was more the connection to people.
So imagine, if you will, not imagine. So the book of Ruth and Shavuot, what connections do you see?
Again, it's a commitment to our religion, to what we stand for.
Mm-hmm. And
Shavuot,
I would add a little piece before. It's a recommitment, right?
recommitment. Yes.
It's interesting. I often don't know who has converted to Judaism and who was born Jewish, and ultimately we all stood at Sinai. And I often find it really excitingly interesting when many of our most active leaders, Denise included, did go through that process and find them that they are our leaders and our active participants in education. I think there's something so incredible about going through the process of conversion, particularly as adults, that we as born Jews could use a little bit of that engagement with focused Jewish learning as adults to then make our statement. When you're 13 and you stand before the community, it is a moment of transition. It is a powerful moment within every family. And at the same time, I think it's a different moment when an adult stands before a community and proclaims their commitment. And I think that's what Shavuot encourages us to be like Ruth every year and to reaffirm our relationship with learning, with Torah, with people, with all of these things. Because we need that sometimes. We need that. One of our words for the coming year is re-energize. And I think we need that. And I think Shavuot provides us with the energy that Ruth and the passion that Ruth brings to those words each year. So this notion of a declaration of faith, obviously Ruth says it so beautifully, your people shall be my people, your God, my God. So my question is, and I'm going to stop sharing for a second. What does it mean to declare your faith? And what would you declare if you were to stand, with a Torah in your arms on this Shavuot? What would you declare? Is it going back to that list that we created? I am a member of a community connected to my people. Is it, my declaration is I will bring chicken soup to you anytime you are feeling like you need health. My declaration is, I believe in one God. Maybe it's Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. That is your declaration. And I realize this is a personal question. I'd like you to take a moment. I'm going to hum a little bit from that tune of Ruth's declaration. And I'm curious if you might share with us what would be part of your declaration of faith in that same way that Ruth made her declaration of faith so many years ago. I declare that I will be an active member of my Jewish community.
touching and holding the Torah for me means I believe in everything the Torah says, all of the commandments and mitzvot, and that is what connects me to my people. Touching the Torah is being part of the Jewish people.
So I declare, because of the social climate that we live in, that if I was to really respect and understand Judaism, I would make sure that that I show it in diversity so that the rest of the world will have equal rights.
I wrote down that too many people take our religion for granted, and so that I dedicate myself to going to services often and to be involved with other Jewish organizations within our area.
You know, many of the things that I do outside of temple are with people that are not Jewish, like many of the guardian ad litem people, my supervisors there, being at the free clinic. And it's really important to me to let them know that I am Jewish and to share what it means to be Jewish and to share my values so that people will no longer have some of the negative connotations that Judaism brings if they're ignorant, if they're not knowledgeable. And it's like, wow, when I was teaching, I was the only Jewish person in my school, the only Jewish teacher, I should say. And, you know, I had people come up to me and say, you know, I really respect your religion. I respect how you are. I respect the way you give to others. And, you know, I think that's important to share with the world what it means to what it really means to be Jewish.
You added the next piece that makes mine complete, because I do the same thing. Many times I find myself with non-Jewish people saying, do you know what tzedakah is? Let me explain to you what tzedakah is. Do you know that we have Tu B'Shvat, where we honor and cherish the trees around us? I'm so proud of what we stand for. You're right, that you need to take that next step to make sure that they know your belief system and maybe teach a little bit about it.
I think we're in, I think that there is so much value to what you were talking about. And I'm conscious, I was on the fence if I was going to mention this. Obviously, we know what's going on in Israel. And as much as what's going on in Israel, there is a social media war going on against anyone who is pro-Israel right now. And those two paths, right? You can be pro-Israel without being against Palestinians. We seek peace as a Jewish people, and I actually want to start as we move into our Rosh Chodesh service. I actually, instead of starting with Ashrei, it's interesting. Hallel, which is the service that we use to mark Rosh Chodesh, is tempered on certain holidays to, so for instance, on Passover, we don't do a full Hallel, we do a half Hallel. Why do we do a half Hallel? Because we need to temper our joy because the Egyptians drowned in the sea. That we should be joyful and at the same time mindful of, with every action, there is an opposite reaction. And whereas with Hanukkah, we do a full Hallel, it's all celebration, though I guess you could say it is a time of war. And perhaps that's, you know, we should think of it. And similarly to Passover, we have something quite concrete on Passover that our Hallel is shortened specifically to be mindful of how much joy we have when something awful has happened to others. And I want to share, I'd like us to start with a prayer for peace. So the words are Sha'alu Shalom Yerushalayim. I'm going to grab the guitar. So we're going to temper our joy just a little bit on this Rosh Chodesh to honor the complexities and the challenges that face our beloved Israel. So I actually can't remember the chords, but this this came to me recently as all this was going on. It goes like this: Sha'alu Shalom Yerushalayim Hallelu Hallelujah Hallelu Hallelujah Hallelujah Hallelujah. Sha'alu Shalom Yerushalayim. Spread over us the peace upon Jerusalem. Hallelujah. 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 I hope in your homes that you're singing with me. Sha'alu Shalom Yerushalayim. Hallelujah. 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 So if we see our prayers as your God shall be my God, then at some point in the coming days and weeks, I encourage you, if you have connections in Israel, reach out to them, just send a virtual hug, just see how they're doing, because things are tense. So we got to balance that. Your God shall be my God, your people shall be my people. Sha'alu Shalom Yerushalayim. Hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu likro et hallel. B'tzeit Yisrael mi Mitzrayim, Beit Yaakov me Amloez. B'tzeit Yisrael mi Mitzrayim, Beit Yaakov me Amloez. Hayta Yehuda lekodsho, Yisrael mamshelotav. Hayam Rav Ayanos, Hayarden Yisov le'achor, Heharim raketu che'elim, Givaot kivnei tzon, B'tzeit Yisrael mi Mitzrayim, Beit Yaakov me Amloez. B'tzeit Yisrael mi Mitzrayim, Beit Yaakov me Amloez. And now it's call and repeat. Oh, just kidding. Oh, I thought I put something else in there. Wait, something's missing. Hold on. Ah. There it is. Now it's call and repeat. Malecha hayam kitanus hayarden tisov le'achor Heharim, Tirkeduche Elim, Gevaot, Kivnei Tzon, Milifnei Adon, Huli Aretz, Milifnei Eloah Yaakov, Hahofchi Hatzor, Agamayim, Chalamish, Lemaino Mayim. Yaida-da-da-da-da, 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 yaida-da-da-da, yaida-da-da-da-da, 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 yaida-da-da-da. Hodu Ladonai Ki Tov Ki Leolam Ki leolam chasto, yaida-da-da-da-da, yaida-da-da-da, yaida-da-da-da-da-da-da, yaida-da-da-da-da, yaida-da-da-da, yaida-da-da-da-da-da-da, Yomarna, Yomarna, Yisrael, ki leolam chasto. Yaida-da-da-da-da, yaida-da-da-da, yaida-da-da-da-da-da-da, yaida-da-da-da-da, yaida-da-da-da, yaida-da-da-da-da-da, Yomurna, Yomurna, Veit Aharon, ki leolam Ki leolam chasto, yaida-da-da-da-da, yaida-da-da-da, yaida-da-da-da-da-da-da, yaida-da-da-da-da, yaida-da-da-da, yaida-da-da-da-da-da-da, Yomurna, Yomurna, Yirei Adonai, ki leolam Ki leolam chasto, yaida-da-da-da-da, yaida-da-da-da, yaida-da-da-da-da-da-da, yaida-da-da-da-da, yaida-da-da-da, yaida-da-da-da-da-da-da. So now we come to setting our intention for the month of Sivan. Oh, much like Ruth, I love her steadfast loyalty. My intention for the month of Sivan will be to be loyal to those around me with as much gusto as she brought to that. Ozi v'zimrat ya vayhi li lishua. Be thinking about what your intention might be. Ozi v'zimrat ya vayhi li lishua. Would anyone like to share what your intention for the month of Sivan is? Sharon, I think you're talking, but you're muted.
First thing I thought of, what came to mind was, like Ruth, I want to always continue to be resilient.
Ozi v'zimrat ya vayhi li lishua. Anybody else brave enough to share their intention? Ozi v'zimrat ya vayhi li lishua. Ozi v'zimrat ya vayhi li lishua. Anyone else?
I think to continue to spread the word about how good we are as a people.
Love that.
I'd like to be less judgmental and listen to people better.
Ozi vezimrat ya vayili lishua. Ozi vezimrat ya vayili lishua. Any final thoughts or questions before we conclude with our psalm of hallelujah? May this month be full of rededication, of re-energizing, of openness, of joy of learning, and of loyalty of this Jewish people that has sustained us, that has created us and brought us to this moment. And may we share that joy and the shalom, the wholeness, the completeness that we get from our faith. May we bring that to the world and to the community, and may that prayer of peace truly find its way to every corner of this world. And we finish off with words of joy, words of praise. Hallelujah. 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 El Bekocho. Hallelujah. Birkia Uzo. Hallelujah. Vihurotav. Hallelujah. Kerov good Lord. Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah, 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 beteka shofar, hallelujah, benevel vechinor. Hallelujah, betof umachol. Hallelujah, beminim veugav. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, betzil tele shama. Hallelujah, betzil tele trua. Kol hanshama. Hallelujah. Let every voice resound with joy. Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah, hallelujah. I thank you so much for a beautiful Rosh Chodesh Sivan. I hope this is a month of peace. Please, please let it be a month of peace and a month of joy. And please find your way to some opportunity to learn. We have a number of opportunities at the synagogue during Shavuot. and fulfill your commandment to eat cheesecake on Shavuot or blintzes.
This was just wonderful.
It
Thank you
really,
so much.
Thank you.
it really was. And you know what? It makes me think there's nothing more beautiful than women coming together and sharing their feelings. It really is something that we don't get to do that often, especially after a year in the pandemic. But there's nothing like it. So thank you for encouraging us to do that.
I'm thrilled to have you, and I'm thrilled to have you down the road. I'm going to give you a heads up. Rosh Chodesh falls when Rosh Chodesh falls. And the next Rosh Chodesh is going to be led by Rabbi Lobel, because I'm going to be on vacation, and putting Rosh Chodesh off for 2 weeks felt like the wrong move. And he will bring to it his flavor. We'll be back in July. And I think probably by August, we're going to be in person doing this.
Oh,
I think so. That's where my mind is at. Denise, you look like you were going to say something.
I was going to say, as much as I love doing most things in person, I really like doing this on Zoom personally, because I can mute when I really want to give myself an opportunity to think and to think about what you've said and what we're reading. I'm sure it'll be just as good in person, but I'm enjoying this on Zoom.
I'm really, really glad to hear that. I appreciate the feedback. We will check in. It might be because the rabbi is unlikely to do music, from what I've heard, not his forte. He might want to do it in person, but I will give him that feedback. You know what? It'll be online. I think it's going to be online, and we'll revisit in July. We'll talk about it for August. But please continue to join us, and I'm really enjoying this as well. So
great.
I can't remember who our next woman is, but it'll be in the advertising.
I'm sure.
All right.
That's great.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Bye.
Chodesh Tov.
Soon.
Okay.